Hello and welcome, I'm Tefera Gedamu. The country now has a new Prime Minister. Is the political landscape bound to change? My guest today, Bereket, is a Government Communications Affairs Minister. Welcome to the program, Bereket.
My pleasure.
Can you now and here say that the transition is smooth? From, you have now a new chairman of the EPRDF and his deputy, and you have a new Prime Minister?
Yes, of course, the transition has been very smooth and orderly, and as it is customary with what has been in the tradition of the EPRDF, and it has been institutional and systemic, so it had been a very smooth transition.
But isn't it a jump cut in a way, because isn't it a market departure in a way, because although you've started the process early on in the last few years, it appears for people who are watching the program that with the new faces coming into the picture, it is quite dramatic.
Well, one can say that in relation to the big posters that we have, but if you look into the kind of leadership that we have in every national organization, in the four organizations and across the spectrum, we've had transition of leadership from old generation to new youngsters coming and going every now and then. So one can say this had been the tradition of the EPRDF. I can tell you, for instance, if you take the ANDM,
the Amhara National
Democratic Movement, we have something like less than 15% of the old guards, while members of the leadership who haven't participated in 3 congresses are the majority. So the leadership continuously evolves, and we have infused new blood to leadership stock of the EPRDF all across the swaps. So this is not a new thing.
So are you saying that the political culture within the EPRDF has been evolving for some point? It has reached a revolutionary departure, because most of the people now in the leadership have never been in the armed struggle.
Well, in one sense you can say that, but in another sense what you can say is bringing people up and substituting leaders from the liberation days by new ones had been going on in the last several years. If you look at some of the organizations, they are led from right at the start up to now by people with no liberation movement backgrounds. Some have also been taking the place prior to this situation. So in that sense we can also, it is a continuity. It's a continuity of a tradition that the EPRDF doesn't look at power as something given and frozen for eternity. It is a continuously changing hands by different people, and that had been the culture of the EPRDF.
So you think this is a new beginning of sorts, because with the Prime Minister Meles Zenawi having left the scene?
It is a continuity in a way, because if you look at the last composition of the leadership, the 2 posters in the leadership, one has been occupied by a person, the Prime Minister himself with the liberation movement background. The other was the deputy position had been held by Mr. Haile Mariam, who had no liberation movement background. So it's a continuity, but now we can say that all of the posters, these 2 posters, are held by people from the non-liberation movement background. So we can safely say the continuity has matured and have shown some leaps.
Why did it took a few weeks before you named your chairman, of the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, the ruling party, even more so in appointing your Prime Minister? Why did it take so long? Was there a kind of discord within the leadership of the EPRDF?
No, not at all. There was no any kind of discord within the leadership. As we in the EPRDF look at these positions not meant to serve oneself, but meant to serve the public at large. So anybody who is going to sit in that place definitely knows that he's not going to be for himself. So we were rest assured that everyone looks at it like that, and we had to focus on the primary issues that concerns us, like that of conducting the funeral process in an orderly manner, in such a manner that our late Prime Minister deserves. Secondly, we have had to analyze the implication of his departure, because Prime Minister Mallas has been one great personality who has contributed in so many ways to tackle the problems of this country. So with his sudden departure, we had to analyze the implication of it. And that had been a very serious question, and we had to discuss this thoroughly and come up with a clear understanding of the tasks awaiting us. Secondly, as you have observed it, there was massive outpour of the public, and the public was clearly expressing its grief on the one hand, but expressing its determination to continue with what Mallas and the EPRDF has started. So we had also to analyze the content of this mass movement, positive mass outpouring. So in a way, we had to clearly understand what the public was saying. So the leadership had to discuss amongst itself and clearly understand and decide how to make use of this public resolve to continue implementing the policies that we have accustomed to. So these had been the matters which we were discussing before appointing anybody. It took us not more than 2.5 hours just to appoint our leaders. Tells you that this is not a very serious issue. It had been given the treatment that it deserves. It was one of the least agendas to us, and that is APRDF.
So in a way, there is a continuity in the tradition, right?
Absolutely.
But there were reports coming out, because we have seen them, we've read some of them, saying that there is some kind of a problem within the leadership of the EPRDF. What was your reaction like? I know you have been reacting to some of these queries, but what do you say to that?
Well,
they're totally unfounded, you think?
This had been a party fighting rent-seeking. And one of the attitudes of rent-seeking can be seen in your power projection, in the way you look at government seats. The EPRDF, as an organization who had been fighting rent-seeking, cannot look into these chairs from the standpoint of rent-seeking. It can only look at them from democratic developmental point of view. So for us, that was given, and that was the mode of operation in terms of the vacuums. There were some in the elites, there were some in the public at large that were anticipating discord and conflict arriving out of competition for power. But that for me seems to be a misunderstanding of the EPRDF, and I only say that.
Okay. So you think that the office of the Prime Minister basically hosts the hot seat?
Well, it's a hot seat because in that seat, Prime Minister has been there, and he has managed that seat in such a way that he has produced so many good ideas to move this country forward, and tested these ideas in the grounds of rural communities of Ethiopia and urban cities of Ethiopia. And, it's a seat where you cannot stay for long without delivering on your promises. So it's a hot seat. We know that. And when we put somebody there, we know that he's assigned to be sacrificed.
So you believe that the EPRDF is delivering?
Absolutely. We believe we have been delivering, and the public testament to our delivery has been expressed through their, very generous and honorable handling of the Prime Minister's death.
I've heard you say continuity. I also heard you and other government officials say that there is going to be continuity in terms of the policies that your party has designed and put in place. What does it mean? Is there no room for manipulation now that we have new faces and you are moving forward?
Well, in the first place, the policies that we were implementing during Malla's time are the policies of the party. And with the sudden death of Prime Minister, a party is not obliged to change course. If he had stayed with us, we would have continued with the policies. And his sudden departure doesn't necessarily oblige us to change course. Secondly, these are policies which are tested on the ground and have bear fruit. We have tested the rural and agricultural development policies where massive agricultural production had been attained. In less than 10 years' time, our agricultural product has grown from something 60 to 240 million quintals. Look into the cities, you look into the infrastructure, you look into the democratization and governance programs, you look into the peace and stability of our policy, you look into the foreign policies that we pursue. All have bear fruit, and we definitely are happy with these policies and strategies. Instead of trying to change, we will attempt to implement them with much vigor and energy, so that we can change the country for good. Once the reality is changed, then a new reality will demand us a change of policies. Before we have implemented these fundamental policies and have changed the reality, I don't think policy change would be needed.
But is there going to be room for improvement, you think?
Well, there is room for...
Is that a closed door?
No. Policies will remain as they are. Strategies will remain as they are. But on the implementation side of things, we definitely know there is a very wide room for improvement. Take, for instance, we have a very good policy for building a democratic society and for ensuring good governance. We know that in ensuring good governance, we have mixed results. We have good results here and there, we have bad results here and there also. So we are saying we have to improve on our promises to ensure good governance. So there we will have a lot of improvements, implementation of our agricultural policies, urban policies, housing policies everywhere. I mean, the implementation side of things would definitely need to be taken care of, and there are reasons that demand improvement. There are shortcomings and limitations on our delivering on our promises. There are also new capabilities that we are seeing, like a massive commitment that we are seeing from the public. So, in my opinion, there is a very wide room for improvement in relation to implementation.
Policies will never change.
Policies will be changed when the need arises. But now we don't see the need.
I'm sure you have read the recent International Crisis Group's report.
Sure.
Right about the time the Prime Minister was sick. And it basically says, calls on the West to apply pressure on the Ethiopian government to allow opposition parties to be part of the whole process. I mean, isn't that a valid kind of statement, you think?
No, it's not a valid statement, and it is a malicious attempt to push your policy prescription to Ethiopia. The absence of Mallas, this country will collapse. This government and the party will be shaky, and if they exert they assume that if they exert some kind of influence, some kind of pressure, we will yield. But matter of the fact is, this is a very strong country. You have seen for yourselves how the population at large had committed itself to the policies, the vision, and things that this government has started. And the party had seen a very orderly, systemic, and institutionalized succession taking place. We have been preparing our rank and file thoroughly through different trainings, through different analytical works. And for me, the party is as strong as ever. But they have been assuming that this is a one-man show, and that was wrong. And this wrong basis of their analysis has committed themselves to prescribing wrong solutions to Ethiopia. So, as usual, we just say they are off the mark.
But isn't that possible that they would continue to apply pressure from the West to kind of influence your policies? Isn't that a possibility? And in the absence of the guy who was a public face of your organization, wouldn't that make a difference?
It doesn't make a difference because they have been exerting pressure in the presence of Mallas. This pressure has been there for the last 20 years. And what was the best thing about the leadership of the EPRDF under Mallas was that we primarily design our policies and strategies and negotiate with anybody based on our policies and strategies. And if we agree on the fundamentals based on our policies, we agree and start implementing. If we disagree, we retain our independence. This is a sovereign country which nobody can push and force to do what is not in our interests. So I don't think we'll be facing new challenges in that respect. Probably some might take this as an opportunity, but what we have seen is there are a lot of good friends who wish us very success in our attempt to change this country. This has been helping and assisting us in so many ways, which we are thankful. And during this trying time, they have expressed their commitment that they are going to be by our side. So we're not in any way perturbed by the actions and attitudes of some extremist groups from abroad.
In light of Ethiopia's, Ethiopia has been involved in peacekeeping. It is a very thorny corner of Africa. I'm sure you agree. Somalia, Northern South Sudan. It's good news that North Sudan and South Sudan have agreed yesterday here in Addis Ababa to kind of go through all things peacefully and agree on major issues, including restarting the oil export business and so on. And there is also Eritrea, there is Somalia, there is some unfinished business out there. What do you think will be your government's role? I know that you said there is going to be continuity, there's not going to be any major change, but certainly these are issues that you're going to live with in the years ahead.
Yeah, immediate after passing away of Prime Minister Mallas, we've been seeing reactions from all over the world, including our neighborhood. And from that, what we have learned is most in our neighborhood who have benefited from Ethiopia's peaceful and mutually beneficial policies were interested in having reassurance as to the continuity of our policies. And they have also expressed their readiness to do the same. Because most of these countries who have close borders with us have worked with Ethiopia together and have been able to improve peace and security around the Horn of Africa. So they were right in asking our reassurance in terms of policy continuity, and we said to them, this is an established country. Ethiopia has a very well-established political system that will continue to implement the good policies, the good foreign policies that promote peace, that promote good neighborliness around the sub-region. So in that respect, although we know that we have lost a great leader who had been instrumental in shaping the Horn of Africa, but we know what he has been doing. We have learned from his experiences. We have been one way or the other participants of the whole process, and we're determined to continue with that process. So Ethiopia and its status in the region will continue undiminished in the new setup as well. Regarding the naysayers and bad apples in the region like Eritrea, I think we have a very tested policy. Our deterrence policy will continue. Hopefully Eritrea will solve its problem this way or that way sometime in the future, and that we expect. And if this can come as fast as possible, that we will welcome it. For now, if things remain unchanged, we will live with it, and we will continue our deterrence policy, and hopefully Ethiopia's peace will not be disturbed by any mistake that's committed on that part of the region.
Well, Ato Bereket, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.